So I love where you've arrived at. So I'm going to tell you what I think, and then I want you to tell us what you think, because I think you have, which is why I've invited you to have this chat for this series. I think you have a recovery community. As far as I'm concerned, Eternal Media is a recovery community. I know you're making films, but actually you've now got, and just tell us a little bit about it. You've got a physical space. You've got a group of people that come and share some of that space. You kind of seep into your very immediate community of Wrexham, but then you're a part of a slightly broader community across North Wales and a little bit beyond that as well, obviously. And so I'm really, I think of you as, I don't think of you as a film project first. I think of you as a recovery community first that makes lots of films. But how would you describe where you've arrived at in Internal Media? Yes?
It's surreal is the best word I could. We shouldn't exist. We shouldn't know each other. We should only know each other professionally, and that's me and Simon, because Simon was the ex-assistant chief constable of North Wales.
Yeah. Simon Shaw. Yeah.
Yes, and I probably, and he probably put a lot of money into arresting me over and over and all the rest. But yeah, I mean, I'd relapsed at tape. You know, I hadn't had any treatment. I was an untreated addict. So none of the head work was done. The only thing that had happened was the drug had been taken out of the equation until I had a bit of a blow. And then in 2011, right off the rails again, into prison a year later, into homelessness a couple of times. And so, you know, the carousel just keeps, the merry-go-round of addiction just keeps going. But so I was in Old Course prison and sat on a bed, and I managed to get a job on the radio. You know, kind of one of the officers had heard, Dave Calley. He heard I'd done a bit, and he got me in to do the radio. Do you know, I loved it. I was so happy to. It's bizarre, but I'd come from a life where I remember getting to prison in the hospital, because that's the state I came in at, and I was so relieved to be there. And you know, you're not having a very good life if you're relieved to be in a hospital bed in prison. So that was a bit of an awakening. It was like, but then I just loved it. You know, he had me filmmaking for him, and it just felt so good to be back at a computer editing, and you know, I just loved it. And he trained me up in falconry. I was just having the time of my life in prison, and I thought, this is saving my life. You know, it might have saved my life already at tape. It certainly saved my life in here. And if it can do that for me, and I'm a bog standard addict of the hopeless variety, I'm sure it could do more for other people. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to make something and what to call it and how would I do it. And I came out, I was homeless again. Through Tonio and Aid, they managed to make me into a case study for the area planning board. They had to give me a code name. My code name was Little Brother, because if they knew it was me, I wasn't a safe bet. They weren't going to like put 15 grand in and then another 15 grand in for 3 months and 3 months of my recovery in a rehab. Not a chance. It wasn't a safe bet. So the way that happened was every now and again, Tony would find me, well, might be in a shop doorway, might be wherever else was, he'd get in touch somehow, and he told me, just go to the library and write where you are at now. You know, don't embroider it, just say where you are, the feelings you have, and he was building up a case of evidence to submit to the area planning board to just to show that this man's going to die. So the area planning board finally voted that they were going to give Little Brother the funding. I went to Detox here in Wrexham, and then went to Open Minds here in Wrexham. And I did 3 months, and the area planning board pretty much threw the next 3 months at me.
Yeah.
And then I came out and I got busy. Well, I went to a sober house. It wasn't very sober. There were people dying in there. So I think the toughest thing about recovery when you're getting into recovery is appropriate housing. So Tony again managed to kind of broker a meeting with me and NACRO, because ex-offender, for housing, and they gave me a flat. It was a shithole. I was grateful for it.
Yeah.
It was opposite a chemist where they give people methadone, buy a phone box where people score from, buy a park where people do it in, buy the Salvation Army there to get there. So I was still, and the other 3 occupants of the building were also in addiction, one type or another. So it wasn't a good place for me. But I used to go down to Eval, which is a voluntary organisation. They gave me a room just to be somewhere, and then a little bit later on, Champion's House did Lisa and Steve did that for me down there. They allowed me to be somewhere, and it's so important for me to get up. This is after, and go somewhere.